Good morning. Simon Reish Ayin Aleph. Dine Kiddush al Hayayin. Interesting Simon. Says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph. Kashiyov lebeisai. When a person comes back from shul on Friday night, Yemaher le'echol miyad. He should hurry to eat straight away. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Hainu lekaddish. Obviously you can't eat straight away. The first thing you do is you make Kiddush. Kadesh Yizkar Shabbos be'es tchilas knisasa. Because at the very outset of Shabbos you should be Mazkir Shabbos. The Cholkama de Makdimin le'tfei odif, because the sooner you do it, the better. Now, as soon as you make Kiddush, you're being Mazkir Shabbos, you're mentioning Shabbos, then you need to eat straight away. Because there the Ramah says that Ein Kiddush al Mokum Suda, and therefore you can't just make Kiddush and then go and do something else, because it's got to be Kiddush Mokum Suda. So therefore, Yemaher Lechel means to make Kiddush and to have the Suda. Now, the question is, what if you're not hungry? So for example, now this week Shabbos here comes in at 6 something, right? So it's the fact it's getting a bit earlier. Last week, the last many months has been much later, so it was 7 and beyond. So we're heading towards the winter. So in the winter you can daven Shabbos here in London. Kabbalah Shabbos can be 3 something. 7. So what?
Shabbos is at 7.
Today? 6 something already today.
Huh?
Yeah, 6:49 or something. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. But let's say in the winter where Shabbos can be at 3:40, whatever, 3:35, very early, so you can come home at 5 o'clock, and it could be that those who are zeichet to have lunch on Friday, you're not hungry. So can you wait? Can you wait? And I remember one time, soon after my wife and I got married, we were invited out somewhere Friday night. And it's like most of us, Erev Shabbos is a very short day, you don't have time to eat, and you get there, you're starving, hungry, and they said, there's no rush, we'll sit, we'll talk, and it was an older couple who probably had lunch, but you're toiv lechel, but let's say you've had lunch, are you allowed to wait? Do you have to actually make Kiddush? Can you delay? So, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'im eina toiv lechel, if a person is not hungry, yochel lahamtin melekadish ad sheyirav, you are allowed to wait, to delay until you're hungry. Why? Because lemaisa you've actually you've mentioned Shabbos in your Shemona Esra. You've said Mekadesh Shabbos. And therefore, thereby you fulfill the mitzvah of mentioning Shabbos according to the Rambam. Like we're going to say further on. According to Rikav Ega, just saying Good Shabbos is already you could fulfill your mitzvah deraisa of Shabbos. That's there's a lot of Torah on this, because one of the I heard this from Rabbi Pinchas Roberts. There's a lot of discussion on this, because l'maisa you've therefore got a halachic problem. If you fulfilled your mitzvah deraisa by saying by davening on Friday night, then when you go home and your wife wasn't in shul, so she's got a chiv deraisa of being zeicha Shabbos. So how can your fulfillment of the drabonon of Kiddush, which are alakais, be mitzi her drabonon, her deraisa of Kiddush Shabbos? So that's the question they ask. So they use the Rikav Ega to answer it. That when you walk in, what are you going to do? Good Shabbos. She says Good Shabbos. She's fulfilled the mitzvah deraisa. That's what they say. But there's more. We'll see more. There's lots of read on this. Anyway, umikol makom nira dehechad yesh b'zeh mishum shalom bayis. If, however, this is going to cause shalom bayis issues by delaying, or you've got helpers, or you've got guests who are hungry, of a prat ereach only, and certainly if there's a poor guest who hasn't eaten for much during the week, then you shouldn't delay just because you want to eat with relish and with an appetite. Don't be from on somebody else's cheshbon. If they're starving, hungry, and you want to be mahader to eat your Shabbos meal with an appetite, that's not appropriate. Okay, there's an interesting ha'ara number 1. Yeah, where is it? Here. What if you come back from shul, and this could happen, you can see this happening, and you're exhausted, and you want to have a lie down on Friday nights before the meal. So to sit and to learn, or to read the paper, or whatever, then Yemaher Lechel Miyad. You should try and get on with it, and if you're not hungry is one thing, But to have a shluf then, is that allowed if you're so exhausted from the week? So he says here in footnote number 1, if he's tired and he wants to have a rest before Kiddush, he's stapik agon Shlem Zalman Arbach. Shlem Zalman is mesupik, he's unsure about it. Because the next thing the poor fellow knows, he'll wake up, it's Shabbos morning. Shari af im lo yikadesh belayla yuchel yikadesh b'yoyim. V'kiddush zeh einem medin tashlumin and ikadin. The trouble is, it's not a din in tashlumin, and so therefore his Shlem Zalman is mesupik. I suppose if you've got a shomer, you've got someone who's going to wake you up and you let rest for a short time, a power nap or something, then that would be different. But if you've got someone to wake you up, that would be different. Okay, so the Mechaber says Yemah lechol miyad. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Base, Umikol Mokum, Me'anochen likris kriyishma mikoidem in mistapik shebeis hakneses leikar bizmano. It's important to try and remember to say kriyishma before Kiddush, because that's inevitably that's what's going to happen. It happens every week. If you think about it, this week, for example, Zman is 6. Davening is here. What time? 6:49. Did you say? 6:49. So Motzei Shabbos is 7:50 or something. So you daven mincha and Kabbalah Shabbos. You'll probably say Marav about 7:20, 7:30 maybe. But either way, it's going to be just before, about 15 minutes before the Zman. So when you get home, it's now Zman to say Kriya Shema. And what Mishnah Berurah is saying is it's important to say Kriya Shema before Kiddush. It's a mitzvah deraisa, and that you shouldn't forget, and Tod v'sheina Tod, and all the other reasons. Okay, so it says Mishnah Berurah, you should say Kriya Shema mikodim. V'ayin le'el b'simen reish samach zayin, Mishnah Berurah sif koten vav. Fine. Kozva Rambam Perik Chavtes Me Hilchas Shabbos. Mitzvahs Asay, just turning over the page, we're in Reish Ein Aleph Sif Aleph. So turning over the page, Mitzvahs Asay, quoting the Rambam, Mitzvahs Asay Min HaTorah Lekadesh Es Yom HaShabbos B'Dvarim. Says the Rambam, there is a Mitzvahs Asay Min HaTorah to be Mekadesh in words, orally. Shenema Zocher Es Yom HaShabbos Lekadshei, Koloimar, Zochreu Zechira Shabbos V'Kiddush. So min Torah, just saying it orally is enough. Chazal came along and said you should do it ala yain, on a kais and the way we do it. V'chein kosva taisus in sukkah and in nozer. Al yain hu rak midrabanon. To make kiddush on Friday night on wine, that's a drabanon, but the ikka zechira is in dvarim is orally. V'kosva Mogen Avram, the lefizeh midaraisa b'kiddush she'emet b'tfilasagi, and therefore, according to says the Mogen Avram, that min HaTorah really kiddush said orally is enough. The krok siv zocher is Yom HaShabbos, v'hari zocher, so he's remembered it. V'kiddush b'mokum suda midrabanon k'mei shekosva beis Yosef b'simen reish samech tes. V'hivya Mogen Avram raya lezeh min ha'gemara the yetz min HaTorah b'tfilah. You can be yetz min HaTorah just through the actual tfilah. Al kain im sofik leim kiddush aylai ein tzarich lachzov lekaddish. Since you've already fulfilled the mitzvah deraisa of kiddush in davening, and then you think, hey, did I make kiddush when I came home last night, or did we go straight into the meal? Did I wash? You can't remember. Since the kiddush on wine itself is rabbanon, then the sofik rabbanon lekula, you don't have to go back and do it. Okay. Just by the way, interesting that this year Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos. Right, so therefore we can't make Kiddush al Yain. I remember all the years, Rabbi Roberts always used to bang on the shtender and used to announce that it's important to have in mind during the Friday night, the Hainu Kol Nidre, when you daven Shemini Esrei, when you say Mekadesh Yom Shabbos Yom Kippurim, whatever the nusach is, to have in mind you're fulfilling the mitzvah deraisa of Zochas Yom Shabbos Lekadshei, but you're not going to do it on a case of wine. So therefore, you can be Mekayim in the mitzvah same of Min HaTorah of Zochas Yom Shabbos Lekadshei, but sometimes people, it's also Shabbos on Yom Kippur. Okay, let's go weiter. Karten, the Karten Shegil Lechinuch, Gam, furthermore, the Karten Shegil Lechinuch Yochel HaHitzi Lefizeh Afil Legadol B'Kiddush. Imagadol is Badal Kvar. So very interesting. So on Friday night, let's say you've got a child who's Hegil Lechinuch, he can make Kiddush to be Moitzi other people, because they're all on mitzvah drabanan, and a drabanan can be mitzvah drabanan. So katzen shegiel lechinuch yochel ha'itz afil legadol shbekiddush im gadol kva hispalel kva is if the gadol is already davened, and therefore his obligation for kiddush is a drabanan. V'ulam yesh lefakvek bezeh harbe. There's a big what?
His mother as well.
Well, we're going to come to that in a second. But yesh lefakvek bezeh harbe. But this is a big tumult, and if you notice, there's an enormous bir halacha. That's basically discussing this, V'da'kaimelon le'el b'simen samech siftale the mitzvahs shrichas kavona lotzes basiyas hamitzvahs. First of all, he says that we know that mitzvahs shrichas kavona or mistome ein miderech ha'olam lekaven lotzes es hamitzvah say the zocher b'tfilah. Did that adult have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah deraisa in his davening? He thinks that he's going home and he's going to make kiddush on wine and over lechem, and he'll do it that way. And therefore, it's not clear that he actually had in mind mitzvah shrichas kavona, whether he actually had in mind that he's going to be the mitzvah of zocher yom shabbos l'katcha during his tefillah. For tov yoiseh. In a way, you're much better off doing it in a more mahudadik way, in a more beautiful way, by doing it around the table with the kiddush cup and lechem on the table. That's how you should fulfill your mitzvah deraisa. And there are other concerns as well, like I've explained in the Behalacha. Therefore, you should refrain from being yotze kiddush through a cotton. And even if this child is going to say the words and you're just going to say the words, excuse me, then you're going to just say the words, unless it's mamish put in front of you, then it's better to avoid it. We're going to get to that. The Kiddush Shel Yontov Hu Midrabanon. Interesting. The Yontov Kiddush is actually Midrabanon. Mikol Mokum Yesh Lo Kol Din Kiddush Shel Shabbos. But nevertheless, all the halachas of Kiddush Shel Shabbos apply to Kiddush Shel Yontov. V'im Yontov Chol Be'erev Shabbos Ein Le'ele Kos Echad. And therefore, if Yontov falls on Erev Shabbos, like it does this year, Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot is Thursday, Friday, and you've only got enough wine for one kos, Manicha LeShabbos Shel Min HaTorah of Yontov Yikadesh Al HaPas. Better to therefore leave the wine for Kiddush for Shabbos, which is deraisa, than to use it for Yontif, and therefore it's better to make it on bread. Now, two interesting ha'aras in the footnotes. Number 10, Umitam Zeh, Choyla, he says, She'einu yochel lekadish ala kais, or mi she'einu lechem v'yayin, or someone hasn't got bread and wine, Das Hagan of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in Shmir Shabbos, Shechayev meikadin lekavim betfilah lot says Yechovas mitzvahs Kiddush. So therefore, a person, a choyle who can't make Kiddush over wine, or whatever the situation, or he hasn't got wine, or whatever the reason is, then he should certainly have in mind to be yotze the mitzvahs of Kiddush, which is deraisa, in his tefillah. And like I said, that's what Rabbi Rotz always used to announce, when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, they should have in mind in tefillah to be yotze the mitzvah of Kiddush deraisa in tefillah. That's number 10. Number 11, v'chein kosav hachasm sofer shelechatchila leyechaven not say sidei chovas kiddush betfila, that actually it's better not to have in mind to fulfill your mitzvah of kiddush in tefillah. Kadei sheyuchel not say sidei chovas kiddush midaraisa ala kos v'makom suda. It's better to do it around the table over the with the family, with over wine, with the lechem. For kosav b'shad shuv shevet halevi, Rav Vosner says sheyesh lodanim tzorach lechavim betfila shelo lot say sidei chovas kiddush. So what does that mean? Does that mean you should have in mind in your Shemon Esra that you're not being yotze to the mitzvah of Kiddush? Or is it that since Chazal will mesakin Kiddush ala kos, memela kavonas hamispal lot say chavos b'Kiddush ala kos, then it's sort of automatic. So that's the Vosner is mesupik about that. Even though the nusach of tefillah and kiddush are the same, and the kavanah of the mispalel is to mention kiddush Shabbos. How can you have in mind not to be yotze? So be going to Shemon Auerbach, sheyichaven not to chavos mitzvahs tefillah. No, your kavanah is I'm being mechaven to fulfill my mitzvah of tefillah. Okay, so what have we said in this seif? That when you get home Friday night, you should try and eat straight away. There's a mitzvah to Yizkar Shabbos as soon as Shabbos comes in, and that means making kiddush and therefore having the meal as well. However, if you're not hungry, then it's okay to wait so that you can eat with an appetite, and that's like a hiddur mitzvah of the Suda, of Einik Shabbos, etc. However, you should not do that at the expense of guests and helpers and other people, and shalom bayis, if your kids, your wife, are ready to eat, then you shouldn't do that at their expense. And there is a mitzvah aseh of Zocher Yom Shabbos L'Kadsha, which we do in our tefillah, and midrabanan ala kos is to do it around the table with wine, etc. Okay.